movement, a very strong one in Germany for a lot of years, and that actually started with Hitler. Hitler wanted to return to the natural medicine sort of doctor, and then the naturopath law in Germany is from 1939, and that's when it started. So it's really quite a paradox. We've got Hitler to think that there's actually the Heilpraktiker or the naturopath in Germany. And this is something that has been developing parallel to the allopathic medicine, what they call Schulmedizin or classical medicine here in Germany. And this is something that basically caused two medical philosophies to exist next to each other. And up until recent years, let's say about 15 years, 20 years ago, it wasn't really an issue because the naturopath wasn't taken seriously and was sort of just something that happened on the side. And I think what's occurred is with the advent of social media and the internet, the ability for people to just go online and look and question whether the doctor is correct. And I get a lot of people coming into the practice and they'll say, look, I've gone and looked online, I've got this and this and this, and they'll tell you some sort of syndrome which is really, I don't know, I have to go online and check it myself first. And people have been empowered to look at their own health issues without needing a doctor to consult. And of course the pharmaceutical companies have noticed this, and I don't think there's a conspiracy running here, I just think it's just profit-driven, that the pharmaceutical companies will often try and produce products that they can market in whatever way to increase their profits, but also part of the business model that the pharmaceutical companies are running is also to stop competition from selling product. And because of the information that's available on the internet nowadays, this competition is actually often minerals and vitamin supplements, and there's a movement against the minerals and vitamin supplements in Germany as well. Politicians are trying to actually stop vitamin and mineral supplements from being sold in high dosages within Germany, but they have to get that through at the European Union level first, so I'm not sure what's happening there. Whether that's going to be successful or not. So the repression of these natural healing methods and the products that surround the natural healing methods have more to do with business models than the fact that there's some sort of group of people wanting to damage humanity. You know, that's not, I just don't think that's the case. I just think it's because capitalism is driving a market-based economy, and the market-based economy develops around competition. And if you can be better than your competition, you sell more product. It's really simple. What that means for the natural medicine branch in Germany, though, is that we constantly have forces working on the naturopath occupation, which is slowly reducing our ability to treat people. And when I started as a naturopath about 10 or 12 years ago, it was around 2009, just prior to me getting the certificate to practice, I was hearing about certain products not being allowed to be injected in certain ways. The naturopath is allowed to inject things, they're allowed to give you medications and vitamins intravenously or intra-arterial, that means straight into the bloodstream. And one of the things that was decided by the government, but I think the pharmaceutical lobby is very strong, so I expect the pharmaceutical lobby was behind this, was that the naturopath wasn't allowed to inject with local anaesthetic anymore. They were allowed to inject directly in the skin, but not in the muscles. And this is what you call neural therapy, or Neuraltherapie is the German term.
Is that law?
this is law now, that you're not allowed to inject that into the muscles. And this is something that was quite controversial for the naturopaths, because there had never been a serious case where somebody had been hurt by these injections. What the medical professionals worry about is, of course, people getting a shock because of injections, but you can get that by injecting someone with water. It has nothing to do with what you're actually injecting, because people can, I know of cases where people will become unconscious just because a needle's been put into the body. You know? It's nothing unusual. You just have to know how to deal with it when it happens.
You've experienced once injecting me in my back with a mini.
Yeah.
I just have fear of needles, so I'm sure that there is a type of shock level that does occur and things that go through your mind. But,
yeah. So this is something that if you look at the examinations for the naturopath, what the government is basically doing is trying to see whether you're going to be a danger for public health, and they want to just test your knowledge and see that you have acquired enough knowledge to be able to heal and diagnose people and not cause more damage than good. So this is Hippocratic Eid. That's what they call them. I'm not sure what you call it in English, but the doctors also swear on this Hippocratic Eid that they say, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to always try and heal people and not hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say, oh yeah, but it's good that when we're making sure that naturopaths aren't hurting people, and we need to make sure that they don't do any damage. But the contrast to that is the damage that's being done by the correct usage of allopathic medicine, the drugs that the pharmaceutical companies are producing. I don't need to go into detail. There have been enough cases that have been out in the public eye for decades of medications where it went wrong and they thought that 60,000 more deaths may have occurred because of this medication that got taken from certain markets in certain countries. And
I've heard of higher figures in different countries as well.
Yeah, and there is the figures are, you can go onto the net and look for different figures, and there are professors that have also spoken their opinion about what the figures are. You can't find it. So bottom line is there are a lot of people every year that actually die from medications in the right dosage. We're talking about the side effects of the medication used for the correct disease in the correct dosage. Then there is the aspect that the wrong medication is given because the correct disease has not been diagnosed. And then you also have the wrong dosages of the wrong medication because of the stress, for instance, in the emergency department. But the figures that I've read in Germany is that 10% of the people that get brought into the emergency department of the hospital have had a reaction to a medication. So this is a big issue that we're talking about, with potentially tens of thousands of people dying every year. Now, I'm not saying these people were not quite sick already, but there are going to be some that were still quite healthy and died because of this medication. Some may have died a month or two later because they're already very sick and their body didn't cope with their medication. But contrast that with the injecting of an anaesthetic that gets used at the dentist. Now, if the dentists are using it, I don't constantly see people being taken away in ambulances from the dentist. And these anaesthetics are well known. So I think there's an issue there that you can talk about competition from the pharmaceutical companies repressing the use of this natural medicine. Now, why would you want to repress the use of a local anaesthetic with a naturopath? Is because potentially you can stop someone needing pain treatment through medications. So if you can stop all the naturopaths fixing people's pain, then you suddenly have a much broader market where you can sell pain-based medications, anti-inflammatories, up to morphine and opiates. All of these products get sold to people that come to me, and I sometimes free them of their pain. They don't need it anymore. So I'm hurting the bottom line of the pharmaceutical companies with my work.
Well, not just you, the other naturopaths.
Thousands of naturopaths, generally the thousands of naturopaths out there who who are actually trying to help people to get past chronic sicknesses or chronic problems are actually getting people off medications. And so the next thing that got looked into, I think it was last year, they stopped naturopaths injecting the blood of their patient back into the body once it had been mixed with some sort of other products, for instance a homeopathic solution or vitamins or something. So they said, you're allowed to inject the blood back in, but you're not allowed to add anything back mixed into it. And
that's also law, and if
this
they
is
find
also,
that
this
you
is,
do that, you can have your license taken away, or do they get fined?
No, you're certainly going to have to explain yourself to somebody. So what that means is that what the idea of treating somebody with their own blood is about is that you take the blood out of the artery or out of the vein and inject it back into the muscle where it doesn't belong. And that causes an immune reaction in the body. It means that the immune system of the body fires up, gets working and starts working better. And that's excellent if somebody has an immune system that's a bit repressed. So why would you use your own blood? Because you can be certain that you're not going to introduce diseases from an external source, from someone else. So it's a very safe method of treating somebody.
And is that what the naturopaths tend to do more than a medical doctor, or do they use the same practice?
There is a branch of medicine in Germany. They call the anthroposophic doctors here, and they do work with alternative methods as well. And of course, they're allowed to treat different things because they're a doctor. They have done a lot more training for that. For that reason, they should be allowed to as well.
Because they've gone through this medical system.
Yeah.
And then they can basically branch out where they want to go.
Yeah. But what we have in the medical system as well is what's called the gold standard. And there have been books written about this where doctors are using treatments or utilising treatments that have not actually been scientifically proven, but because they're the standard of medical practice, it's accepted. And you've got a case in America where if a doctor starts using a new method, he can be sued by other doctors simply because it's not the general method of practice. Now this is nuts, because this means that if the science is showing that a new method should be used instead of an old method, but there are vested interests keeping that old method going, for instance because there are some sales of some sort of medication surrounding that. Even amongst the doctors are being held back from improving human medicine.
So they're basically stuck in a certain system that keeps them, they're also controlled by the industry basically, to follow certain guidelines, and they can't,
their life is made more difficult if they don't follow these guidelines. And what does America have to do with Germany? The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA in America, is basically who everyone looks to see whether medication should be allowed or not. And a lot of medications in Germany will be allowed if the Food and Drug Administration in America is given it the green light. Because
not everything, I'm sure.
Not everything, but a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there's a simple reason for this, is because if you do a lot of testing on a drug, it costs a lot of money. So why would you test a drug in America and then test it again in Germany? So you've got a lot of money involved there, with the pharmaceutical companies saying, look, we've had it tested in America and it's been accepted as safe, why can't we use it in Germany? And then you've got the pharmaceutical lobby at the all government level saying, look, please let us use this medication. There's a patent running on it. The patent runs out in 25 years. And we've taken 5 years to get it to production, and we want to earn our money now. And the German government says, yes, it seems like it's right, the science has been done, then we'll allow it in Germany as well. So the way the medical system works in America has a direct influence on the way medicine is practiced in Germany.
Or worldwide?
Also worldwide, yes. And there has been quite a bit written about the conflict of interest within the Food and Drug Administration, and if you look at some of the people who are higher up in the Food and Drug Administration, you will see a career path where they're swapping between the Food and Drug Administration and the industry and back again. And it's just a seesawing back and forth. And the Food and Drug Administration has actually got the role of controlling the pharmaceutical companies, but it seems to be more just a hand-in-hand sort of slap on the back situation. So this means that the allopathic medicine worldwide is being influenced by individuals who are earning money selling these medications.
And then influencing the politics on top of that. You mentioned to me that Angela Merkel's husband has got some kind of connection to some politician or his business.
No, he's got a connection to one of the research institutes that look into human medicine.
Okay.
Which means that, and you've also got the Jens Spahn, his partner, is also, as far as I know, is working for a company who also produces immunisations. And you can find it in YouTube. There's the Horst Seehofer was interviewed by someone and basically said we couldn't change enough in the health industry here in Germany because the lobby was too strong. He admitted that. So we're talking about high-ranking politicians who are saying the pharmaceutical companies are too strong. And you've got large pharmaceutical companies in Germany. You know, you just have to look at Bayer, for instance. I think Roche is another one that's.
And Pfister.
Yeah.
Is another one.
Yeah, that's.
Well, I googled this. It's a $38 billion year industry. If that's just a figure for America or worldwide, I'm not sure, but it's obviously.
I think the 38 billion is just going to be for
America.
No, just were your figures about America or Germany?
It's just said the pharma industry. So.
No, that would just be for Germany because 10 years ago I looked into the treatment of using chemotherapy and radiation for cancer patients. And worldwide. 10 years ago, worldwide chemotherapy and radiation treatments were already clocking 200 billion in value. And I know that worldwide, the treatment of multiple sclerosis is worth 18 billion. Just multiple sclerosis. So I think your figures 38 billion are not worldwide, they're just Germany.
Okay. So there is a big.
As far as I know, just quickly, as far as I know, the health industry in the last 5 years in Germany has been costing about 250 to 300 billion, just so you've got a feeling for that. So if 10 to 15% of that is medications, then that would fit.
And the naturopath is like the next competitor for them that they're trying to basically wipe out. But there was something that started in 2009 already. I read up where the Bundesministerium wants to kind of stop you guys or control you guys.
Politicians have been talking about that for at least 20 years, but nobody really seriously got stuck into it. And now Jens Spahn is looking into how he can reduce the influence of the naturopath.
Because it's getting too strong, or it's growing too big, or there's the conflict is starting already?
I don't think that it's growing too big. I think that basically there's an ongoing campaign to keep natural medicine down to a minimum because it just hurts the bottom line of the pharmaceutical companies. Are
you basically saying that we don't need medication from the pharma industry, that the natural medicine that you guys use or practice is that basically enough, and that all this stuff that the pharma industry is making is doing us more harm than good? Or are there certain things you could say?
Yes and no. Where the allopathic medicine really doesn't do well is with chronic disease. A lot of people with chronic disease are basically just getting medications that regulate or repress the symptoms.
But doesn't fix it.
Yeah, but it doesn't fix it. Talking about whether we need modern drugs. If I was in a car accident and had just been torn open from a piece of glass or something, whatever, and I was critically injured, there's nothing I'd like more than to have a competent doctor sew me up using the correct anaesthetics and using the drugs to keep me alive until my body can regenerate on its own. There's no question about that, whether that's necessary and useful. Where the question can be asked whether the pharmaceutical companies are damaging more people and hurting more people than they are doing good is with the chronic disease. It's not just that the pharmaceutical companies potentially know about effective alternative healing methods. I think that sometimes the scientists doing the work are actually convinced that they're helping humanity. I think where it goes wrong is when the managers start looking at the bottom line, how do we earn more money? Because I should imagine there's a lot of scientists out there that would love to bring humanity further through their research. But there are also some corrupt scientists out there as well. Pandemic, and there was a French virologist coming on TV and saying, I can tell you that this virus, I've looked at the sequences, and this virus has been man-made. The newsreader was asking him, saying, yeah, but other virologists are saying that it's not the case. And he said, I'm old enough that I don't have to chase the research money anymore.
So he's basically come out and said he can speak freely now because he's not tied into the system anymore.
Yes. So this means that you've studied as a virologist, you've been studying 10 years, 15 years to get to where you are. And suddenly someone comes and says, if you don't fit into our system, your occupation is going to be worthless for you because you're not going to get any research grants anymore. Now, what does a researcher do who's built his whole life up or her whole life up around a certain type of research? They've got two choices. They pull back morally a little bit and keep doing the research and hope that they may be able to find something that will help, or if somebody's not really bothered about it, they say, oh, I don't care, yeah, whatever, I'll do what I need to do to earn the money. Or they choose the other path and say, I'm going to leave science. And this is something that motivated me to become a naturopath originally. I actually studied biology and studied aquaculture as an applied biology degree. And I got into my honours year because I thought, oh yeah, I'll at least do an honours year. I want to see what's happening out there. And suddenly I noticed that all of the doctors and professors were just chasing the research money. They were just chasing the grants. And I thought, there's not much ideology happening here. I actually wanted to help feed the world. That was my original thing. Now I'm healing the world, I guess. But I soon got out of the aquaculture industry because I noticed that there was actually more damage being done to the world's ecosystems and to the food production in the oceans than good was being done. And that's because, for instance, if they're farming salmon, they need about 1 kilo of anchovy meal to produce 1 kilo of salmon. Maybe they're up to better conversion rates now. They can get 1.5 kilos of salmon out of 1 kilo of anchovy. But they're actually catching a fish high in omega-3 fats, which is really good for your health, sending it halfway across the world to a manufacturing plant where it gets turned into a pellet. There are some other additives put in, and then it gets thrown into a pen where these salmon are living cramped up, often with diseases which need to be treated with chemicals, and that's in the Sounds up in Norway, for instance. They're actually looking at banning salmon aquaculture in Norway now. There are people pushing for that now. So we've taken a perfectly good food source and turned it into something that's full of chemicals and has got a very big carbon footprint.
I see parallels in the pig and cow industry, but it's also over mass produced and diseases start. And
this is exactly what I tell people, is that the salmon production is basically like the pork industry underwater. And as someone who's studied aquaculture, it might be a bit disquieting to hear that I don't eat aquaculture products. I don't eat fish raised in aquaculture settings because I can't guarantee that there's even a health benefit to it.
And just shows, I think the salmon I'm buying out of Scandinavia is kind of healthy because of the water and the cold, and I'm made to believe maybe that it's like that, but it's all food industries seem to be changing.
There's There are a lot of people that have been led to believe that fish was healthy to eat because there were enough studies done that showed that omega-3 fats were health-bringing, and that is correct. If you take enough omega-3 fats, you can actually decalcify your arteries. You can't repair the damage that's done completely, because the calcification of the arteries begins because the arteries lose their flexibility and they start getting tiny little tears. And basically the arteriosclerosis is develops because the body is trying to shove a mixture of cholesterol and calcium into these damaged areas. Basically it's like repairing a brick wall by putting some more concrete, cement between the bricks. And if the brick wall gets damaged, then the first thing you do is you try and put some more concrete into the gap. You don't tear down the brick wall and redo it. So the body's just trying to keep up with the repair work. And if you understand that the arteries need to be kept healthy and flexible, and vitamin C is very important for this, because vitamin C helps to produce collagen in the body, and collagen is what keeps the skin nice and elastic. It also keeps the arteries nice and elastic. And if you give the body enough of the right products, then it can repair the arteries itself, or basically not actually have the damage occur. If you go to a pharmaceutical giant and you tell them that, look, you should stop selling all of your statins, what lower the cholesterol, and that's $1 billion industry. All you need to do is give the people enough vitamin C and enough omega-3 fats, and just make sure that there are a few other health guidelines are followed. The pharmaceutical companies don't want to hear that. They love it when somebody starts taking a cholesterol blocker, because that's something that they're going to take till they die. So if somebody goes to the doctor and the doctor says, oh look, your cholesterol's a bit high, and that person's 50 or 55 or 60, I don't know, around that age, and they say, okay, then you've got to take this medication. Okay, great. So if that person lives till they're 85, you've just got a customer that has got on board for the next 20 years.
Buying your products non-stop.
Yeah, buying your products non-stop. The funny thing about it is that even the doctors are misinformed about what they should be, why they should be giving people statins to lower cholesterol. You give someone a statin, and this is the, I saw some medical studies that, this is 10 years ago, 15 years ago already, that showed that the statins lower the chance of having a heart attack by 1 in 1,000 people, and raise the chance of having a stroke by 1.5 people per 1,000. That means it actually increases the death rate of people taking it. So half a person in 1,000, so 1 person in every 2,000 people will get a stroke quicker because they're taking something to lower their cholesterol.
But that's the statistics they work on. They see it as a whole. So if like only 4,000 people or 400,000 people died, then they basically saved lives. They use that kind of argument.
I understand this, but the doctors, I've had people come to me and the doctors recommend to take something to lower the cholesterol, to improve or to lower the risk of heart disease and stroke. Now somebody's told this doctor, or the doctor has found this information on his own, which is unfortunately incorrect, that he's helping people who may be in danger of having a stroke. So we're talking about misinformation here. So this is something that there are certain aspects to allopathic medicine which are life-saving and lengthen your life, but there are things like the products that lower cholesterol that are actually putting more people in danger.
At risk then,
and that's just keeping the pharmaceutical companies rich. That's that's got nothing to do with human health.
So from your point of view, what do you want to see happen now with this fight you're having against the German government were you seeing maybe that they're going to take your job away? Were you seeing
there is a potential. Jens Spahn asked for an independent body to check whether the naturopath as an occupation could be shut down in Germany, which I question why that's necessary, because there is not that much damage being done. And if you say, okay, there are some treatments that are being done which have caused some harm, and 1 or 2 people have died even through treatments because of a naturopath. There are, I think, 130,000 treatments being done every day. Naturopath treatments being done every day in Germany.
About 138,000.
Yeah, and if 1 or 2 people, every person that dies is a problem. If 1 or 2 people are dying because they're terminally ill with cancer and they're trying their last papers at the naturopath might be able to help them. And that's the reason for shutting down a whole occupation. When you've got the doctors killing people every day, inadvertently, I don't think they're sitting there going, oh, I know this medication kills people, but I'm going to make some money. I don't believe that's the case. But
you don't become a doctor to kill people.
No, but there are thousands of people dying from the side effects of medication every year in Germany. And so you have to put it in relation to what's being done with allopathic medicine. What you aren't hearing about is the thousands of people that are being healed through the work of naturopaths. Chronic disease that disappears. These people don't come into the statistics or aren't part of statistics anymore because they're healthy.
Isn't there a body governing the statistics to get the information out? There must be someone that controls the stats or has a look at the results, and I'm sure they must have people doing stuff like that.
The thing is,
you don't just practice your practice and no one. You just make people out and they go. No one knows what's happening. I'm sure there's always someone policing someone else.
What I've experienced in the practice is that I'm reliant on patients getting back to me and telling me that they're feeling better.
You only see them when they're ill.
Yeah, I only see them when they're ill. And sometimes I'll have a family member or a friend come to me and they say, oh, so-and-so says hello, they're doing great. And so I don't have any hard stats on who I'm helping, but I know that there are a lot of people out there that have been helped through my work. There are obviously going to be people that will say, oh, it didn't work for me, I have to go somewhere else and try and get other treatments. That's obvious. You can never heal everyone. What the problem is that these figures are not really known. And just imagine if somebody started doing the stats officially for the government and they said, oh, we've got better healing rates due to the work of the naturopaths than we do with the doctors.
Let's push the money in their direction, there'll be a war.
What would happen there? That nobody wants the information to come out because that's disturbing the whole system. Now, from an ethical viewpoint, you would perhaps hope that we're trying to help people and heal people and get people healthy. From a commercial viewpoint, a business viewpoint, you are not going to make money off somebody who's healthy. So the pharmaceutical companies aren't interested in getting people healthy. It's unfortunate, but that's the truth of it.
The medicine company, basically, I'm going to say this, the medicine companies, they're so powerful, obviously, because it's the machine driving the economy, and whatever everyone thinks here, the medicine that's produced in laboratories are stronger and get us healthier quicker. Where I think I mentioned to you, I hardly ever take any medication. I know that my body can heal itself, and even the last time I was in the hospital, the nurse came in and wanted to give me a few pills, and I was like, what is that? And she's like, oh, this is for this and this. And I said, do I have to take it? And she went, no, you don't have to. I was like, well, then I don't want it. And I didn't know that. You just think when you're in hospital, you do what they want to, but it's, I just want to know how's it's going to go from here onwards, because there's a big movement starting now to kind of save your guys' careers or your work you want to do, and you're fighting against this big machine is basically telling the government to push you guys down. And there's what's the way forward from there? How do you guys go about getting your message out there to kind of school everyone that just that system's maybe not the only system out there, and someone should try alternative medicine? I've seen people that don't get better on the normal way and they switch to the naturopaths and all of a sudden they start healing. So maybe not everyone is fit for that medical industry. I don't know, or is that just? I mean, humans are the same worldwide. Maybe we don't need that, but it's gotten so strong over the years. It's difficult to go to something different, or people think it's all hocus pocus, or this. That's kind of the mindset that maybe we've been brainwashed into thinking.
Part of the problem is that to understand why there is a push against the naturopath and why it's all about profit for the pharmaceutical companies, it's interesting to understand where the pharmaceutical companies developed from. They were originally developed from the oil industry, because the people in the oil industry at the time saw an end to the auto motor, so a car motor that needs oil, and wanted to broaden the product base that could be produced from oil-based products. This means that you have commercial interests running the pharmaceutical, driving the pharmaceutical companies, and that's where they've originally come from. They weren't started by some sort of doctors wanting to heal people. The pharmaceutical companies, which were started by doctors wanting to heal people, are like Wohle and Berufsbildes. They're sort of they produce natural medicine.
That's what we used in our kids, Berufsbildes products.
Yeah. And what this means is that basically you have a philosophical problem. This means that you've got a capitalist-driven market, and you've got an idealist-driven group of people who are naturopaths. That's a generalization, but that's sort of generally fitting to what you see today in the medical industry. There's one thing that you have to understand here is that nobody's going to come down from the sky and save us from the pharmaceutical companies. People have to wake up and realise themselves that the medication they're taking aren't making them healthy, and that it's keeping them sick. And once enough people say, I don't want this product, then the pharmaceutical companies have no power because they aren't making money. It's really simple. As long as most of the people on this earth don't want to take responsibility for their own health, there is going to be someone who's happy to sell product to fix that apparent health problem. So the way forward for the naturopath working against the German government is to basically mobilise enough people into thinking that there is more to be gained by looking after your own health than leaving that to somebody else. And this is something that's interesting because it ties into the corona pandemic quite strongly, is that there is now a change of thinking occurring, because Angela Merkel's getting up there and saying the pandemic is over once we have a vaccination. Now, we talked about this last time. This is an interesting thing that it's been bothering me. Why or how can a politician even know that the vaccination is going to be the answer? There are people working all over the world trying to find solutions to the coronavirus. And I think the coronavirus has been beaten up to be more than it actually is, but it's still a deadly virus. We don't need to question that. However, why couldn't the answer be that, and this is already being researched, that the immune system gets turned down a bit to stop people dying? Because at the moment, what the doctors are seeing is that the virus is creating an immune reaction. They talk about a cytokine storm. And this immune reaction is what actually blocks the lungs and causes people to not be able to breathe. The virus itself is not stopping people breathing, it's an immune reaction. Now, if you could create a product that could specifically repress the immune system, perhaps there already is one. If you could create a product that could specifically repress the immune system so that the virus doesn't cause this acute respiratory distress syndrome, which has been killing people, then you've essentially neutralized the coronavirus. So why is the government out there saying the pandemic is going to be finished once we have an immunisation? So this seems to be market-driven.
We've been, sorry to interrupt, but we've been schooled that way, that if you have a vaccination, that's like the number one drug. You have measles, there's that vaccination. You don't get measles anymore. We think a vaccination is the cure to every big disease out there.
Yeah,
that's I think how we've been programmed to think.
If you've had measles, naturally as a kid, usually you've got a lifelong immunity.
I've had it twice, it means I'm twice as strong now.
Yeah, there are cases where you can get it again. However, if you get immunised, you're only protected for about 10 years on average, and you can get the measles again then. So you have to theoretically keep immunising. And vaccinations are worth a lot of money, and I've heard this is a question of whether the pharmaceutical companies are actually working in this direction or whether it's just a side effect. But it is known in the scientific literature that vaccinations do cause more chronic disease to occur. Now, if you were a businessman without morals, you would be saying, excellent, then we'll give as many people vaccinations as possible, and then the next generation of customers are going to walk through the door in 20 years. But if we keep this cycle going, we've got a permanent customer base. So that's a fickle topic. I don't think all humans, I don't know if you would say evil, but basically morally at a lower standard. However, it is well known that vaccinations can cause more chronic disease. Now, who has the medications for the chronic disease? It's also the company selling the vaccinations. And you could say, yeah, but company A didn't sell the vaccination, but company B is actually the one responsible for it. Company A and company B may belong to the same group. You don't know that. And if the whole industry is running like that, then it's basically a corruption in the whole industry that's working in that direction. And I've met individuals who have worked as pharmaceutical reps, and they said they got out of the industry because it was too immoral for them. And
they knew what they were selling.
They knew what they were being told to basically sell no matter what. A case of the whole industry attracting people who are willing to do things more immorally than others. You've always got a percentage of the population who don't see that as an issue. Yeah, I'm just making money and don't care about the other person. That's a shame. I'm not like that, but I know there are people out there that are like that. And these people are also sometimes sitting at the top of the companies, making decisions based on economics because the shareholders are saying we want growth.
That's why Bill Gates has been scrutinized a bit, because his organization now is like to make a world vaccination that everyone needs or everyone should have, which is basically going to make him more money than Microsoft ever did. And for one person to bring out a drug to control everyone is...
It's not just about the vaccination. The theories with Bill Gates is that he wants to chip everyone. And
so you've been controlled if you have it or not, and they can register.
Yes.
If you don't have it, then
correct.
Basically...
I can't comment on whether that is actually what Bill Gates is wanting to do. There is enough information out on the net, people can inform themselves about that. What we were talking about last week, they were getting into a different direction about the direction that humanity is actually taking now in the future, and information is the best weapon against that sort of control. If people don't care enough about it, then they will be controlled by some sort of interest groups, whether that's Bill Gates or someone else, it doesn't matter. The next generation will bring the next group of people that want to control us. So if humans don't want people like Bill Gates running our lives, then they have to decide for themselves to stop just listening to the rubbish on the mainstream media, because we're just being sold fear at the moment. And it's not necessarily not necessarily the case that the mainstream media has been bought by Bill Gates everywhere around the world, and that mainstream media is selling us a product that Bill Gates has got control over. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that the media, mainstream media, sells fear because it keeps people on board. They're selling a product. If you want somebody else to take on all the responsibility for you, then you will always have someone there standing ready to say, I'll take on the responsibility for you, but I'm going to earn something for it. Whether it's power or influence or money, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be someone interested in utilising a deficit for their own good, and not necessarily for the good of humanity. This is more about humanity maturing than it is about what we have to do to try and fight big pharma or big oil concern. Any of these controlling industries, if you're controlling energy, you're controlling food, you're controlling water, and you're controlling health, you're controlling society. Now, if we become energy independent, that means if inventions are allowed to be brought onto the market where people have free energy, and there are already magnetic motors being produced that work, and we get off the grid, and we, as a group, as humans, stop allowing companies like Nestle to buy all the water wells up in Africa because some corrupt individuals in government have allowed it. They've earned a bit of money, but they've basically sold out their people. Once the control of energy, food and water becomes decentralised, then people will start having more personal empowerment to come to them. The question is, how do we do this? And what the coronavirus is also creating is a wake-up call for a lot of people who have just been sitting there going, I don't care, I'm happy as long as I can watch telly and go out on the weekend and go and have lunch at a nice restaurant. Then if somebody's buying up all the water wells, then I have to buy my bottled water, and I'm not getting the water for free because it's a human right that you should be able to drink water. These sort of things weren't possible anymore because of the coronavirus. Suddenly we weren't able to go out anymore and have a drink with friends. Suddenly our freedom had been reduced so strongly that we started looking at what freedom actually means. And so there are a lot of people coming up now and saying, actually I'm not happy anymore to be giving up so much of my freedom. And this is something that's not going to die down in a couple of months. The coronavirus is man-made, that's going to be proven, it's come from bats. But that it was a mistake, that it got out of the laboratory on its own, probably because some animal care caught the virus and wasn't careful.
Or transported like has been transported now.
Why else would China try and repress the information about the coronavirus in the beginning? Because it was a mistake. And I don't think, it's quite possible that the coronavirus was developed in an American laboratory, but I think the Chinese were in on it, they had it in their laboratory. And it just got out by mistake. And there may be some plans that have been developed to put a virus like this into the world and create a pandemic. But I think if that was going to be the case, they should have used a stronger virus. And I think what happened was sort of like, maybe it was just shortly before midnight, and this virus got out before the proper virus got out. And a combination of factors may have been coming into play. The first thing is that it got out in Wuhan, where it was one of the first cities with 5G. And
is there a relation to that?
The 5G, I don't think, is causing the virus. What 5G networks are doing is they're damaging the immune system. And so people who got the virus in Wuhan were had a higher chance of dying of the coronavirus than people that aren't in an area of 5G. The Wuhan, so as far as I know, Wuhan has got a complete grid of 5G going. It's one of the first cities. It was supposed to be China's business card to the world. Look, we can
Look what
get
this
5G
technology
network going. And that's why there's been a huge backlash against China now, because they acted irresponsibly around the virus, and so Huawei has been thrown out of a lot of countries. And I find it very questionable that Germany is still keeping Huawei in the system, because they know that it's a state-run company.
I think they throw Huawei up because they don't want their technology to take over the world. They want to make their own and sell it to. It's the only reason you control a company by not selling their products.
Mate, so do you mean that Huawei was wanting to sell their product in Europe? That's why.
No, I don't know if they created this 5G and it's in their products, and everyone wants everything faster nowadays. So
5G was created by the US Army as a weapon because it can disperse crowds.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that. How it's something you can't see, but it kind of
yes, and with 5G you can control the emotional states of people. This is why there's a lot of people that don't want 5G around. And the idea that you need 5G for autonomous driving is a load of crap. Why can't you create a network within the automobile industry that the cars are communicating with each other? Why do you need
something different? I mean, 5G to me sounds like there's something more behind that than what we think. I've seen guys with instruments measuring the data they get from that and the levels that they're shooting out.
There's more data flowing than should be.
And that's what you're saying is basically destroying our immune system, which is our life support. And once that's gone, we can even die from the flu or a mosquito bite.
Yeah. So what I think has happened in Wuhan is that the virus seemed to be a lot worse than it turned out to be. And so if there were some interested parties wanting to create a pandemic for whatever reason, they got on board too quickly, and then the virus got out into the rest of the world and wasn't as deadly as they were hoping. And that may have been a potential reason why the coronavirus is actually going to be good for humanity, because it got the people that were wanting to control humanity in those terms to show their hand too quickly. And it meant, why is this important? Because people who are in fear can be controlled, but everyone noticed too quickly that this wasn't killing off 10 or 20% of humanity. And so
just a small amount, basically.
And a lot of people came back out of that fear-based thinking a lot quicker than expected. And people who come out of fear, what usually happens if you come out of a fear-based thinking, the next phase is you go into anger. The Chinese medicine has a lovely model, the 5-element theory, that shows that people who are healing through getting past fear go into the next stage, and that's anger. And this is what you're seeing at a societal level.
No, it's just people are going crazy.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of people out there that are angry. They got a shock. They internalized all of this pressure, and this pressure has to come out now. So the pressure valve has been opened, and that's the anger that's occurring. And the question of whether Soros is controlling people through Black Lives Matter, whether he's trying to get people moving in a different direction, I think if you're talking about individuals trying to manipulate the whole of society, I think they've bit off more than they can chew. Because society as a whole, if what is being channeled is correct, society as a whole is now developing energetically in a completely different direction. That means that we're becoming more responsible. We're starting to develop a sense of humanity being one group. And obviously that's a utopian way of looking at it. We're not there yet. There are still enough people that say, due to race or religion or
has society
language
ever been there?
No, they haven't. And what is being channeled is that we're now at a turning point, because this is the first time in the history of the world where the world is dealing with an emergency and we're not at war. Now this is very, very interesting, because what is occurring energetically is that we are sitting down at the table and dealing with our problems without shooting at each other. Now look at how China and America are dealing with each other at the moment. They are spitting poison at each other. But they're not getting out and shooting the guns. Now, if China and America had done this 20 years ago, sorry, I would assume that they would have gone to war by now.
I see it's an interesting point, because off the top of my head I'm thinking that's how humans have evolved. We used to kill each other with spears, then we invented guns, and now we're into cyber warfare.
Yeah.
And we can also create things in the laboratory that can kill complete society. So,
but we're not doing it. The cyber warfare is not happening either. The Chinese could be going online and killing American power plants. They're not doing it. The capacity is there. I looked into this some years ago, and I know that
it's because if they can trace it back to them, and then
No,
get the ramifications.
everything's online. Also, the power plants are online, power generation. You just need to let certain pumps or certain power plants fail, and certain industries are actually just going to be without power, without energy.
Yeah, we're very power or energy reluctant. We basically can't live without it.
Yeah, we're addicted.
Yeah, we need it.
Yeah. So what's happening with China at the moment? Why isn't China going to war with America? Because they've got an internal war running at the moment. I don't know if you've been looking at China's underwater at the moment. There are floods everywhere. You know, if you were somebody looking at what's happening in China in biblical terms, you would be saying that the plagues have come. Now, I'm not that in that sort of energy. I don't see that as a plague, but China's having some problems at the moment. Their economy's in a disastrous state because China went out too aggressive, dealing with the rest of the world, saying, no, we're not at fault. The rest of the world has said, we don't want Chinese products anymore. And even a couple of months ago, there would have been 500,000 companies in China that had gone bust. So the Chinese economy is running downhill real fast. So they haven't got the money coming in. And now the official stance of the government is that whoever is farming fruit trees or other tree products should now be turning to farming rice and wheat and barley, because China, because of the floods, hasn't got enough food. So the Communist Party in China has got some really big problems. They've got floods everywhere, they haven't got enough food to feed their people, and nobody wants to do business with them. The Chinese Communist Party has got some really big issues. They can't afford to go to war with America. Yeah, Xi Jinping is fighting just to keep the Communist Party alive at the moment. And whether he is successful or not, we'll have to wait and see. You know, this is why I don't believe that Bill Gates is going to bring down the world and become like an emperor of the world or something, because the world's going in a different direction, and because we've woken up, because the coronavirus wasn't as bad as perhaps expected, and everyone's woken up and said, look, something's not right here. And so if an immunisation comes suddenly, we can all immunise ourselves, everyone's going to go, but why? The virus isn't that deadly. Why should we be immunising ourselves against a virus that's similar to the flu, with a vaccination that's questionable in the health risks that it poses?
I wrote down a few things that you find in vaccinations, and I was shocked to see what goes in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
And I always see a vaccination as like, it might be the cure, but for me this is already now the 6th version of Corona. Every time you fight it, the next version comes out stronger. So the virus is always going to win.
The virus is always mutating.
Yeah, then we have to find a way how to live with them, and yeah, it's an interesting time.
The coronavirus will become part of our endemic disease profile,
like all the others that have evolved over the years and the different cancers.
Coronaviruses have been around for a long time. It's nothing new for humanity. And this is why some people aren't even producing antibodies. This is the problem with the vaccine. That if you say, okay, you want to do an antibody check on somebody to see whether the vaccine has worked, the immune system is more complex than that. Just an example that we spoke of last time. I worked with a vet for a short period of time who was responsible for allowing dogs in from Africa for people who were getting a bit away from human medicine, but there's a parallel there. They had to have rabies shots before they were allowed in.
That's like standard, basically.
That's standard, yeah. If you couldn't show that that dog had antibodies against rabies, they weren't allowed into the country. And she told me that some dogs had the antibodies after 1 injection, some needed 3 injections, some needed 5 injections, and some dogs she didn't let in because after 7 injections, 7 immunisations, they still hadn't produced any antibodies. Which then throws up the question, how does the immune system work if the body is being challenged with a certain disease and doesn't have the immune response that we're expecting?
Doesn't react to it.
No. So this is something that I see it very critical that Jens Spahn and others in Europe are talking about an immunity passport, because some people will never have the antibodies. So if you have an immune system that's more efficient than other people, that doesn't need to produce any antibodies because it's just able to live with the virus, you are going to have to live with the fact that you may not be able to travel because you've got the better immune system. Is that a world you want to live in?
That's questionable.
Yeah. And there are politicians being told by pharmaceutical lobbyists that this is the way we should be living. So there is somebody there that may be acting morally, telling a politician who has no idea about immunology to write a law that we have to all inject ourselves with an immunisation that may or may not work, which may or may not cause severe side effects, just because we're all in fear, because the media have been beating up on a virus that's actually not as dangerous as they've been saying. And I'm not saying that the coronavirus isn't dangerous, but it's not killing off 10% of us.
I mean, the numbers are a lot lower than being put out there.
And is it worth shutting down the world?
I don't think so. I find that really...
We're at 500,000 deaths, roundabout. 500,000 deaths in a world with 8 billion people. And we've been fighting this thing for almost 3/4 of a year now.
And malaria kills more people per year than anything else.
Millions.
We don't hide indoors because the mosquitoes flying outside.
No, so it's not about questioning whether the coronavirus is a problem or not, but it's about questioning whether the system is overreacting to the threat. And there are a lot of people who've been studying a lot longer at universities than I have who are also questioning that as well. A lot of top medical professionals are coming out and they're being ignored by the government, and this is causing people to think that something's foul, that something's not right, because the government's not listening to a broad cross-section of advisors. They're just following their course, and this, I think, has more to do with the pharmaceutical lobby than anything else. Because the pharmaceutical lobby, irrespective of whether Bill Gates is trying to drive his agenda or not, the pharmaceutical lobby is happy to make the money, and the World Health Organization has also got contracts with its member countries that if a pandemic occurs that they have to buy immunisations, so there's too much happening here, and I think the politicians are just trying to hold on to their seat and hope that they survive the trip. They're holding one by the seat of their pants, and any politician that turns around now and says we made a mistake has lost his job.
Yeah, we need to be in a position where we can prove that it was wrong and stuff. So interesting times ahead, I guess.
Yeah, so we've got basically politicians all over the world trying to prove that the decisions they just made some months back are the right ones, and they can't back down on that.
I mean, at the moment they get criticised for not shutting down. No one's saying, oh, it's good that you didn't shut down, so we're at that phase now. So in the next few months or years, it's going to be interesting how humans come out of this, and how everyone improves their lives and gets back to being constructive and working.
I'm curious to see what happens in Sweden. Because
wasn't it Sweden and Holland that didn't shut down?
They didn't shut down as much. Now, to say that they didn't shut down is not correct. They still did stop large groups of people meeting. Now, I think in
But
Sweden,
they didn't put them in
more
the
than
houses.
500 people weren't allowed to be in one spot, so like you could go to a football match, for instance. What Sweden is trying to do is develop a herd immunity. And whether that's going to work, now everyone says, yeah, but they've lost so many more people than other countries. Now let's look at the figures. There are 10 million people in Sweden and 4,500, 5,000 people have died. And a lot of these people are already sick and old. So before we go beating up on the Swedes about how bad they've done it, we're talking about a very low number of deaths. You know, we have to, let's just go back to the example of malaria. Nobody's shutting down the world for malaria, and it's killing millions of people every year. So the Swedes have basically tried to create a herd immunity. And what that means is that they're not going to have as many problems with a second wave, if there is one.
Because the people are stronger to
The immune systems of the people are already used to this virus. So whether the coronavirus still kills millions of people or not, I don't know. Maybe there will be a medication or a vaccination that is created that does work, and it will help humanity to move past this. What I think the coronavirus has been positive for is getting people to look at what they want out of life. And this is creating perhaps more a sense of community than anything else. And also the empathy that occurred, because the older people, the older generation couldn't go out and go to the shop because they were scared to go and buy their groceries, so the neighbour went and got the groceries. People weren't nailing up their doors and saying, oh look, that person's sick, you know, like the Black Death. We were working as a community, and that's creating empathy, and that is also part of the maturity process that humans have to go through. As a person trying to help others through healing, you're constantly asking the question, what's behind the disease? Why has that person become sick?
Yeah, you like going to the source, not just the quick pill.
No, and the source with a lot of people, what motivates a lot of people is simply fear. And I'm not talking about the fear that I'm going to die tomorrow, which a lot of people have had to experience due to the coronavirus. I'm talking about the fear of just, where do I get my food for next week? Will I have a house over my head next week? Will I have money in the bank next month? These fear issues drive people, motivate people to build a certain lifestyle so that they can, how can I say it, so that they can experience the illusion of control. Now I talk about the illusion of control because, my opinion, the only thing that's constant in life is change. You cannot control what happens tomorrow as an individual. We've seen that with the coronavirus. All you can do is stay flexible enough and trust that the path you're on is correct. Now, if you don't have this God-given trust, or this trust in the universe, or this basic trust in life, then you fear that you won't have enough, that you will die poor, that you won't have enough to eat. And this fear motivates you to then go out and earn more, collect more, whatever more might be. It might be more cars, it might be houses, it may be shares. And once you feel you've collected enough, then you may be feeling comfortable and say, okay, I'm happy. But there are individuals out there that no matter how much they've collected, how much they've managed to earn, they're still not happy. And they still need more. That's your billionaires in a lot of cases. Because they're fearful life not being able to deliver enough.
Yeah, the level is just, for a billionaire or a guy that's earning 20,000 a year, that
doesn't really matter.
The money's, it's just the fear of a certain, just at a different fear level.
The billionaire worries about the stock market going bust and all of his businesses dying.
Yeah.
You know, he's still got these fears within him. So if you've got fear motivating you, what do is you try and get or collect more of whatever it is you feel you need before the person next to you takes it away. And this causes a sense of competition to arise amongst individuals who actually would be stronger if they were there for each other in a social environment. Now, I'm not talking about going back to a communist way of thinking that you shouldn't be allowed to have more than the next person. I think you need to give humans the framework to do what they feel they need to do in terms of feeling secure. And if that means that you want to earn $1 million a year or more, then that's what you need to do. If you're happy with the $20,000 a year, then that's also fine. However, as long as we as a society working with a capitalist viewpoint, competing, it doesn't matter how many people I destroy on my way up as long as I'm on top and stay up there, that's not going to be conducive for human development. And humanity will not develop past this point of throwing rocks and spears at each other, whether that be verbally or physically, until we get past that point where we say, okay, we need to leave fear behind us. And now some of your listeners might be saying, yeah, what does it mean? I mean, you can't just say, okay, I'm just going to live for the next day and do nothing. This is where it gets interesting. I am of the opinion that humanity biologically will start to develop so that we can feel the energy fields more. And once we start feeling the interactions between us and the environment around us, we are going to get a bigger sense of oneness occurring within humanity. And this will cause a paradigm change, which will lead to humans being more caring of each other. Not because we suddenly all become interested in a utopia where you always have to live for the other person. It's because people will eventually realize that if you're interlinked with your neighbour and you do something bad to your neighbour, you've just hurt yourself. That means that you've just lowered your energy field, you've just lowered your vibration, the vibration of your energy field, because you've damaged somebody else.
At the moment, you don't feel that.
At the moment, most people don't feel that. I do feel these feels.
Could that be because the chemicals in our body seduces those feelings or suppresses those kind of emotions? If you're born in the wild and you have a different sense of life, or someone that's been living in a city most of his life on all the other chemical things around him, I don't know if that kind of influences someone's...
Yeah, there is a lot of information out in the esoteric world about the thymus gland being repressed and that stopping our link to a higher self and a higher source.
Remember the pill, the baby pill? Antenatal is one big
I think it's
factor that's had a lot of problems in women.
It's quite possible that the biochemistry of the human body has been damaged by our modern society at the moment. However, I've experienced this sort of awakening for myself, and it wasn't necessarily purely biochemical. And I think there is here we go back to the challenge of crime again. Crime saying humanity is developing at the organic level, but also at the spiritual level. And that's one important thing, I think, is that science still hasn't been able to answer why the 24th chromosome pair aren't there in humans. And this is because what is being channeled is that this chromosome pair is multidimensional, that it's actually gone up a notch in vibration so that we're able to work as multidimensional beings. It's getting into quantum physics then, about how energy works and how we draw energy into our body and how we gain information. We have intelligent energy fields in our body. Parapsychology scientists are already showing that. It's just mainstream science hasn't been able to get on board, because mainstream science is still being financed by pharmaceutical companies. The ideologists aren't there to look into this. So this means that our biology is going to, it's my opinion, our biology is going to develop parallel to our spiritual development, and that it's like switches are being turned on, where more and more people are going to be able to feel these energy fields and sense that there are already a lot of people out there, probably more than you might believe if you're not going out there and talking to individuals all the time. But I've had people in here, Pharma, that tells me, oh look, I sometimes know what's going to happen 4 days ahead of time, but I can't tell anyone else. But I can tell you because you're like a esoteric natural healer sort of person, or a young bloke who works in the bank and says, oh, I know when someone's lying because my shoulders get hot. You know, these are things that make no sense for a scientist working with pure biochemistry. But they're obviously things that are occurring in normal people that have maybe got some sort of talent, but they just haven't developed it. There's been no use to it. You know, what happens if you start telling people, oh, I can see, I know what's going to happen in 4 days. And they say, oh, look, he's going a bit nuts. So you keep it to yourself. And the energy work that I do, and a lot of other natural healers do, because I'm not just working physically on the body or with vitamins or mineral supplements, I'm also working with the energy fields of the body. A couple hundred years back, I would have been burnt at the stake, would have been called a witch. I mean, men weren't doing that sort of thing anyway, but the women were sort of, their intuitive side, they've got a bit more an advantage above men with their intuitive side. That's why they're ideal to be mothers. Yeah, they can feel when their child needs help. And this is something that's also been a change in recent times. So that someone who's a natural healer, who's working with energies, isn't being burned anymore. There's a parallel there to the development of the politics in the world, that we're not fighting each other anymore, we're trying to sit down at the table and talk about it. Yeah,
you're not being burned, but some way I feel like they're still trying to suppress.
Yes, this is the pharmaceutical companies. But it's, again, this whole talk that we're having here is essentially touching on enlightenment topics. How do people wake up and start taking control of their life a little bit more? And is there a spiritual component to that? And what can people do in that direction? And if enough people work in this direction, then you have a coherence of thinking that is causing physical manifestation in its energy fields that's actually going to block things like that happening. So this is, you're talking about, that it's important that it's 200,000 people have signed a petition, because then the government has to look at it. I'd argue the most important thing about this petition is that 200,000 people have said energetically, I'm aligned with this process. And that is going to create more of an effect.
Feeling the same thing,
yeah.
Could that be like an energy line you're talking about? This fields you're feeling?
It's an energy field, yeah. The thing is, the government, they have to listen to a petition where 200,000 people have signed. Big deal. What does that mean? Jens Spahn looks at this and goes, I don't care. Yeah, there are people in government at the moment criticising Angela Merkel for following the course of lockdown. Well-known politicians having a go, saying, look at the science, it's been done. The virus is not as bad as they think, and you're damaging our economy. And Merkel stands there and says, no, we've picked our course, we're going our course. Do you think that a petition from 200,000 people for the naturopath is going to change that much? I don't believe that it will change much politically, but energetically.
It's a start.
It's a start, no question, but energetically it's important that enough people are standing up and saying, we want the naturopath, and that Jens Spahn may make another decision because he notices that there's some people looking into this. Now, more importantly, there are also naturopath associations who have also looked into it and have also looked into how they can use the law to stop Jens Spahn from causing problems for the naturopath. What I think will probably occur is that the naturopath as an occupation will not be completely destroyed, but it will be a lot harder for people to become naturopaths in the future. And there may, if it's one of the worst case scenarios, is that they may push it through that the naturopaths who are already naturopaths are allowed to stay naturopaths, but there's no new naturopaths allowed to come through.
Well, the training system has to be changed, and they kind of get people.
This is
interesting to see how it turns out.
This will be in autumn. There will be decisions made about this, and it will be something that even if a Jens Spahn decides that that's not the right way to go, that we don't want to have any naturopaths. Anthony, we're looking at a timeline which is a lot bigger here in terms of human development. And natural medicine will never be completely taken out of the medical system because it's worldwide. You know, in England, they've got homeopaths in the hospitals.
That's true.
Registered. People can go to the hospital and say, I'd like to talk to a homeopath, please. And in Germany, they don't want to talk about whether homeopathy even works. Now, I've seen homeopathy working in fish that don't get patted, they don't get talked to. They're sitting in a tank, waiting to be sent to the next hardware store to be sold, and homeopathy is working. There is no question in my mind whether homeopathy works. All of these discussions about placebo effects and whether homeopathy has an effect, I think it's just a waste of time. I've moved past that 20 years ago after I saw the effects of homeopathy on animals, and it was one of the reasons I got into natural medicine. Because I was working with a vet who was injecting koi carp with homeopathics and seeing them getting healthier quicker. And I had lots of different tanks where you could say this one will give an antibiotic-laced food, this one we're going to put in a medication that kills parasites, and the third we're going to try with homeopathics. And seeing the homeopathics working. And I never had to question whether that was the case, because I was working in an industry where if the animals died, you lost money. You don't do what loses money if you're trying to sell product. And if you're looking at selling animals, you want to keep them alive. That's what you're there for. So you do what works.
You obviously want to sell something healthier that's not going to kill someone.
Yeah. If you want to know what works in human medicine really well, ask people that keep horses, because they talk to each other a lot and they only do what works. They may have to give their horses certain immunisations. I'm not sure about the rules. The people who own horses, they're horse lovers. Yeah. And they talk to each other and they know what works. It's all a question of motivation. And once we start loving ourselves enough as individuals, as human beings, to say, I'm going to take on the responsibility of my own health, like I would for a horse. I'm going to look after myself as well as I would my own horse, if you're someone keeping horses, obviously. That's when people will start empowering themselves, and the pharmaceutical companies will lose their power. And this is something that has to grow through individuals. It's not going to be something that's going to occur at the societal level.
I mean, someone has to create a movement or get the message out there and make more people aware of things that's going on. And I think at the moment everyone is a bit more aware and start questioning things and all the conspiracy theories, and it's kind of guiding people to start thinking different.
Yeah, the conspiracy theories, I've got a bit of a problem with the conspiracy theories. Some of the stuff that's being brought out there is correct and needs to be looked at, but
it's a bit too far-fetched, and you think, it's just another guy's...
It's not about far-fetched. I want to recommend to people that they are thoughtful of keeping their own vibration up high. If you start getting too much into conspiracy theories and into the negativity involved, you can lower your vibration down too far, and that creates a negative effect on the whole system. Be aware of conspiracy theories, be aware of the information that builds a conspiracy theory, and be aware of the fact that there can be a lot of truth in it. But my recommendation for people listening to this and wanting to create a positive energy field is not to let yourself get drawn down by it. Keep producing positive energy, because that's going to raise the vibration of our society as a whole, and improve the decisions that are being made by politicians who may be ill-informed, or by other people who may be ill-informed. You know, the best thing to do is actually to send positive vibrations to Jens Spahn. Not to get angry about him, but to try and get his vibration raised up a bit so that he makes a better decision.
Yeah, true. How do you influence someone? How do you go about influencing society to change? I don't know. Good question. One thing I want to finish off with now is you mentioned you're writing a book. Or you're starting a book. You've already started a book, and it's going to be published soon. What's going to be in the book, or what's it about? What's it called? Has it anything to do with what we spoke about today, or is this, or what message you want to get across out of your book?
Some aspects of the book touch on what we've talked about today. The book, I don't want to give you the title just yet. I'd like to keep that under wraps for the moment, but essentially the book is touching on a topic which has been around for quite a while in esoteric circles, and that's about how the energy fields of the human partially define human interactions. That means that if you're in a situation where you're talking to someone and the other person doesn't allow you, for instance, to get a word in sideways, then what occurs there is that the one person is taking a lot of energy and the other is only giving through the attention that they're giving. And that creates an imbalance in the field of these two people. And some people learn from the time they're a baby till they're adults. They don't learn it any other way. Some people learn that the only way to get energy is to take it off someone else. And this lowers the vibration of both parties, because you've taken energy from someone else at a cost. You may feel better a little bit, but you haven't learned to keep your own energy field full and healthy, because you've taken from other people. It's sort of like fighting over the scraps on a table after someone's had a feast. You say, oh look, I want that crumb still, and oh, I better grab this crumb as well, but you missed out on the feast. Now, if humans were able to understand that the energy field surrounding us can be influenced through thought and through certain lifestyle changes, you're able then to build up a stronger energy field, and you don't need to take from somebody, and you can start consciously giving more energy to others if you feel that that's helpful. And the book is basically revolves around the healthy giving and taking of energy within relationships and within society as in a larger sense, and that human behaviours often depend on these energy interactions. That means if you're fighting with someone in a relationship because the love field isn't being fed from both sides, and you have a problem with one partner coming home and saying, oh, look, honey, I'm really stuffed today, I had to work so long, and the other person says, yeah, no problem, I'll give you some of my love energy. Yeah? They give you some attention. They are actually physically giving you some energy. But what happens when both parties come home and both need more than they can give? And suddenly you start fighting. And so you start arguing, and you're actually just arguing about the energy that the other one can't give at the moment. And so you start saying things, you start looking for faults in the character of the other person to try and get the other person off guard so that you can win some of the energy. Now, if you understand this and start working consciously with your energy fields, it means that if you're even in the middle of an argument with someone, and you suddenly come to the realization, we're both low on energy at the moment, and you've developed a technique. I'm also going to offer some techniques in the book, how you could potentially load yourself up with energy immediately. Then suddenly you're in a position mentally to give that person more energy again. And you can say, look, okay, I've just thought about it, you are right. And we need to stop discussing this because we're not getting anywhere. And I think it's important that we maybe look at how we can find a solution. But you've been able to switch in your thinking because you loaded up on energy, And then you can suddenly bring more energy into that field surrounding that partnership. And that leads to the following mechanism, that the partner then can also suddenly come out of that deficit and raise their own vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can redefine the love relationship, even if it seems like the love is gone, it's dead. You can still get the flame going again, but you have to understand that that flame needs to be fed. It's sort of like starting a little fire and keeping enough wood on it. And if the fire goes out, then you can start it again, but make sure you don't forget to keep feeding it. There's no point in starting a little fire and saying, hopefully that'll be enough. Of course it won't be enough because there's no fuel being put on the fire. And that fuel needs to be the energy that both parties are bringing to the discussion. And that may be at a loving relationship level, it may also be an interaction with friends, it may be a business relationship, or it may be at a societal level in a group.
Mm.
And a lot of people will have experienced how group energy can work. We're experiencing that at the moment in the corona pandemic. Fear as a group energy pulls down a lot of people, and it's difficult if you're in that fear energy group to pull yourself back out. And I've actually been doing a lot of that in the last few months. Is people coming in and saying, look, you're stuck, I can see you're stuck in this fear field. Let me help you raise your energy and get back out.
Is that what it can also cause the body to malfunction? Because I've been to you a few times, you've helped me really good. I think your method's the only method that works for me.
For you, yes.
I've tried everything, well not everything, but
a lot of different methods, yeah.
And having low energy affects your body and you get sick that way. So it's a spiral, basically finding how to improve your energy, or every person should find a way now after reading your book, hopefully, that can open us into a new world of how to create an abundance of energy that you can say, gee, I've got so much, just take it, guys, you know.
This is why I questioned you before about we all having to earn less, because you were suddenly saying you think the solution might be less abundance, and I think the solution might be that we can wealth, and I think the solution is that we can all earn more. Yeah, that
if we have more to give, but if you're having to fight because you're down the food chain, it's difficult getting out of that.
Yeah, and the idea is that we come out of this food chain thinking and into a network thinking.
I mean, our food's gone from we're hunting it to we're buying it, so there was a big change in that. And I'm sure that we're in a phase now where like, I can go hunt for my food, but you know, we've been used to doing it this way, so societies are going to change over years, and
these are the challenges that our society has to deal with at the moment.
Yeah.
But
along with all the other stuff that goes on.
But as long as we're not working in a giving energy field with an abundance, with more than enough, as basically a thinking philosophy, we are always going to be looking to get ahead of the other person because we don't have enough. And it's about getting out of that fear-based thinking and starting to manifest energy because it's there, just most people can't feel it yet. And I'm certain that human biology is going to develop. The more we work in this direction and train it, the better we'll get. You know, you became a good golfer. Could you golf really well when you were 3?
No, because my body wasn't ready for it.
What if you would have grown up your whole life with people saying you're a bad golfer?
I definitely, I do believe that does influence. Whatever you hear daily does influence your life.
Yeah, and if we grow up hearing you're worthless, you're not very good, then what sort of base is that to develop an energy field, a physical energy field that is strong?
You need to dig really deep to get yourself out of that hole, and not many people have the capability of doing that, you know. So you're saying working together as a society is easier to uplift everyone than everyone working against each other, trying to take more than they really need. Or
group energy increases exponentially according to how many people in the group.
If they're all in the same thinking way or wavelength or working in the same direction.
If they're all working in the same direction. A coherent group thinking causes an exponential energy field growth. This is something that isn't well known perhaps, but it means that if you've got two people in a group talking to each other, they can only produce a quarter of the energy that 4 people can produce. 4 people can only produce an eighth of the energy that 8 people can produce. You know?
I've been to seminars where there's been like 100, 200, 400 people, and the guy on stage, it gets you motivated. You feel like when you come out of there, you feel, wow. So there is that kind of, I know what you're trying
the group
to say.
dynamic. Yeah. And this is my physical experiences, what I'll be putting into the book as well. My physical experiences of energy fields is that you can manifest energy without having to get it through eating or drinking or breathing. You can manifest energy within your body. It's part of our biology that we can draw on energy from, it's very difficult to explain at higher realms. It's basically, quantum physics explains it a bit better. That and quantum physics calls it scalar energy.
Can you show me the picture of the leaf?
Yeah.
Has that got something to do
yes,
with it?
that does have something to do with, you have biofields which are aligned with your physical body, and these biofields are intelligent fields that can also draw energy in. And this drawing in of energy allows you to actually raise the amount of energy flowing in your body. And once you learn that you can do that, then you don't feel the need to take it from somebody else. And so you leave the other person with more energy. So that's already improved. Just doing nothing except raising your own energy field has helped the people around you. If everyone's raising their energy field and start giving a little bit, then suddenly there's an abundance there so that nobody feels that they're lacking.
And there is an abundance. I know there's enough for everyone on this planet.
Yes. It's
people's going for billions of years till the sun gets big enough that it kind of takes everything away. But this fighting against each other for survival is what's basically ruining ourselves in a strange, crazy world.
So I think that's going to change, and part of the coherence of thought with people understanding the energy fields is what I feel is hopefully going to help some people when I write this book. It's going to help them understand that this coherence of thinking and the energy fields that are surrounding it are not just esoteric concepts, they are physical manifestations that can change your biology. They can change your physical health, but they can also change other things in life as well. But I mean, I don't want to get in and start selling abundance. There's been a lot written in esoteric circles about abundance and how to manifest abundance, but a lot of it, in my opinion, has been very theoretical. You know, the idea that you just have to ask the universe for this abundance and it will come, but not understanding the mechanisms. There's actually energy flowing into your body physically to help raise your vibration and help improve your health, and that you can then pass that on to somebody else in a physical form, and that thought is the pathway.
Yeah, but that's always that saying what you hear from the ancient times is your mind and soul that kind of work together, you know. And then you have the healthy body that goes with it. If your mind is destroyed in your body, you can't have.
And I'm just talking about the mechanics of it. How does that work? Because there's not enough information out there, because a lot has been written by people that have been motivated by this style of thinking, but they haven't actually been able to feel the fields. That's not correct. There are people out there that can feel the fields, but a lot of books have been written without a practical instruction set. How do I do that? When do I know that I'm feeling it? Can I test it with other people? And this is what causes a lot of uncertainty, because people can't feel it that easily when they start working with energy fields. And I think that working with energy fields should move away from the realm of energy healers and become something that every individual can utilize as a part of their biology.
People who start meditating, are they getting closer to that field because they're taking time for themselves? Is that like an entry way, or how would you?
Meditation will often lead to a clearer thought process, and a clearer thought process means that you're focusing more.
Clutter,
And the simple process of focusing more on what's happening within yourself or within your life creates a better vibration.
I find that, sorry to just interrupt you, but it's why I'm asking that, because I'm just, you're talking about finding ways for better energy. People that tend to meditate do seem to be more one at ease with themselves and more calmer and more.
I think
what big movement going on about that. Yeah.
What you're seeing with people that are meditating is that they're resetting the chaos inside. And now we get to an interesting point. You talked about the fact that I was the only one that was able to help you. Now, the myoreflex therapy, that's the treatment of the muscles. What I've noticed is that treating the muscles also aligns the energy fields of the body. Whether I'm trying to do that or not, with the meridians, yeah. And it's not just the meridians, it's also the general energy field of the body that becomes aligned through doing the physical work. The myoreflex therapy is just a very effective way of doing this. And what occurs when you align when you align the energy fields within the body is that you're increasing health. So what occurs there is that that person is energized. Now if you meditate and manage to align the energy fields in your body just by clearing out blockages in thought, because your whole body plus the field around you is your thought field, not just physically within inside, then you're actually aligning your body and increasing, not increasing, I'll say it differently, what you're doing is you're improving the energy flows within the body, and that automatically leads to a better health. And so the people that are meditating seem more balanced, they seem like they're glowing more, and this is something that I think increases the energy generally. Now it's something interesting, I used to meditate a lot until I started healing, and then I found through healing that I found my own balance within helping other people.
Healing was your...
Healing was my way of meditating, yeah, so that doesn't mean that I take from other people. Not that somebody misunderstands that and I'm saying, oh look, I'm grabbing energy from other people. No, it means that I was finding balance within myself because I was doing something that I felt was useful and didn't feel the need to search for my usefulness. What was defining me? Why am I here? And I found that by finding working an occupation that fulfilled me. And this is important. Not everyone has to be a healer to be able to align themselves. You just have to find something to do that you love. And if you can earn money doing that, that's great. And just simply finding something to do that fulfills you will improve the energy balance of your body. It will increase your energy levels. Because you don't feel like you're having to do something and give something where you're not getting enough back. Because the financial side of working is only one part of it. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that can will agree with me that money's not everything. You want to enjoy the work as well.
I feel I can sit. We definitely going to have another conversation soon. I find when we're on the energy field, and I think we, I don't know if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we do interact good with each other.
Yes.
It's been very informative, and I definitely want to. I think we can. If I didn't have another appointment, I'd be sitting here for another 3 hours and stuff.
Oh, but it's enough. It's enough as well.
Yeah, I was definitely going to cut it up and make different sections out of it because there's. But we'll definitely be doing something in the future. Again, I find you very interesting. You've got good things that you're talking about, and maybe in the next conversation we can go more into the energy fields that where your book's going to be about, and
into the details of it. Yeah, there's plenty to talk about there as well.
Definitely, we'll leave that for another conversation. So thank you very much for your time, and really interesting. And I hope we can start getting other people's thoughts and think patterns into all aligned as one, so everyone can work a bit together again, and we can all come out of this crisis a bit lifted and ready to move in a different direction.
Yeah, that would be good.
Wonderful. Thanks very much.
Okay.